As I said at the start of the show, I'm James Morrow. My pronouns are steak and martini. I am a man wearing a blue suit jacket and, trigger warning, loafers without socks. Just kidding. What? This is how it's done, right?
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
Yes, that was Vice President Kamala Harris at the White House this week, picking up on a ritual, and I use that word very deliberately, that started in universities and tech companies, and which, in the blink of an eye, is now being seen in the highest corridors of power. But let me offer the Veep guarded congratulations. Her words there actually made sense. The circumstance, the White House explained, was a meeting of disability advocates, and she described it herself in a fashion that was startlingly grounded in reality, right down to knowing that she was a woman, which is pretty rare these days. It was a level of clarity that her boss Joe Biden's team could have used when, confronted with the latest horror show economic figures, they tried to deny that the U.S. was heading into a recession, which, for the record, is when the economy experiences 2 successive quarters of negative growth. Now, overnight Thursday, figures came out showing the U.S. economy shrank again for, guess what? Another consecutive quarter. But here's what White House flack Karine Jean-Pierre had to say earlier in the week when asked about whether those numbers would mean the U.S. was indeed in a recession.
The way that we see is that we are not currently in a recession or a pre-recession.
Okay, well, if you say so. But again, isn't the definition of a recession 2 quarters of negative growth?
If things are going so great, though, then why is it the White House officials are trying to redefine recession?
No, we're not redefining recession.
If we all understand a recession to be 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth in a row, and then you have White House officials come up here to say, no, that's not what a recession is. It's something else. How is that not redefining recession?
Because that's not the definition. That is not the definition.
Brian Deese.
And not according to White House advisor Brian Deese either this week.
2 negative quarters of GDP growth is not the technical definition of recession.
But go back to 2008, and you can see Brian Deese then had a much more consistent definition of the word. Namely, again, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. And guess what? So too did the media, which was when Trump was in office just itching for things to go south.
What is a recession? A recession is 2 consecutive quarters.
2 consecutive quarters.
2 consecutive quarters. 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP.
Because, as you know, it's 2 consecutive quarters of down GDP.
Now, though, it's a different story, with unofficial regime media outlets like the New York Times and Washington Post, at the very least, hedging their bets. But for the American people, no matter whether they wind up officially calling it a recession or not, it's a different story, with ordinary citizens struggling to make ends meet, reporting that they are cutting out meat, excess trips in the car, and fast food, all to make their budget go further. And these are all, by the way, things the so-called elite have been calling for them to do for ages. Just a coincidence, I'm sure.